You've probably wondered what it would be like to breathe underwater. No tanks, no submarines, no rushing back to the surface for air. Just you, slipping beneath the waves as naturally as walking through a park. It sounds like fantasy, but the real question is far stranger. What if your ancestors had never left the ocean in the first place? Would you still look human? Would you have built cities? Or would intelligence itself have evolved into something completely different? Around 375 million years ago, some of your distant ancestors crawled out of shallow water onto land. It wasn't because they had a master plan. It was because life kept rewarding tiny changes. Stronger fins, better lungs, limbs that could push through muddy riverbanks, one small advantage after another. But history almost went another way. If food had remained abundant underwater, if predators on land had been even more dangerous, or if the climate had shifted differently, those ancestors might never have taken that first awkward step onto dry ground. And that single difference would rewrite everything you know. The first thing you'd notice is your body. Your arms would probably be much longer than your legs because swimming values reach more than running. Your hands might be connected by thin webs, turning every stroke into a powerful push through water. Your bones would likely be lighter and more flexible because water supports your weight. Massive leg muscles simply wouldn't be worth the energy. Even your skin would change. Human skin constantly loses moisture because air pulls water away from it. Underwater, that problem disappears. Instead, your skin might become smoother, coated with protective oils that reduce drag, much like dolphins or seals. But the biggest change would happen where you can't even see it. Your lungs. Or maybe you wouldn't have lungs at all. Many people imagine humans growing fish-like gills. It sounds simple. It isn't. Gills only work because water constantly flows across thousands of tiny blood vessels. The problem is that water contains about 30 times less oxygen than air. To pull enough oxygen from it, gills need enormous surface area, and moving water across them requires a surprising amount of energy. That's why even large fish spend much of their lives constantly swimming or pumping water through their mouths. An intelligent underwater human might evolve something different. Perhaps a combination of lungs for occasional surface breathing and specialized oxygen-storing blood similar to whales. Modern diving mammals already carry far more oxygen in their muscles than you do, allowing them to stay underwater for over an hour without taking another breath. Evolution doesn't always invent something new. Sometimes it simply improves what already exists. But surviving is only the beginning. Could underwater humans ever build civilization? This is where things become surprisingly difficult. Your entire civilization depends on fire. Every piece of metal you've ever used began inside a furnace. Every brick, every glass window, every engine, every computer chip traces its history back to heat. Underwater, fire doesn't exist. Without fire, there are no metal tools. Without metal tools, mining becomes nearly impossible. Without mining, there are no machines. The technological ladder that lifted humanity might never even have its first step. Does that mean underwater intelligence would remain primitive forever? Not necessarily. It would simply become intelligent in different ways. Instead of forging steel, you might master biology. Imagine learning to grow buildings instead of constructing them. Certain corals already create enormous structures over time. Underwater humans might selectively breed living organisms into homes, bridges, or protective walls. Giant shells could become shelters. Glowing bacteria could replace electric lights. Seaweed forests might become carefully managed underwater farms. Nature would become your engineering toolkit. Communication would evolve too. Sound travels almost 5 times faster through water than through air. Instead of speaking with short bursts of sound, your language might include long-distance whistles, clicks, and low-frequency vibrations that travel for kilometers. Entire conversations could happen without anyone being visible. Your cities might sound like giant underwater orchestras. Even your art would change. There would be no paintings hanging on walls. Instead, artists could choreograph schools of brightly colored fish, sculpt living coral into impossible shapes, or create glowing underwater gardens that bloom only at night. Beauty itself would feel alive, but one challenge would remain almost impossible to solve. Space. The moment humans discovered astronomy, everything changed. Looking at the stars inspired navigation, mathematics, calendars, and eventually rockets. From beneath the ocean, the sky barely exists. Sunlight fades rapidly with depth. At only a few hundred meters, daylight almost disappears. The stars would remain hidden behind kilometers of moving water. Without seeing the universe above, would anyone ever wonder what lies beyond their world? Maybe not. Or maybe curiosity is stronger than circumstance. Perhaps generations would slowly build floating platforms that reach the surface. Those rare explorers might become legends, returning with impossible stories about a giant burning sun, floating clouds, and countless sparkling lights covering the night sky. To most underwater people, it would sound like mythology, until someone proved it. Then there is another question. Would underwater humans even dominate the planet? Life in the ocean is spread across 3 dimensions. Food can be above you, below you, or kilometers away. Territories are harder to defend. Populations stay scattered. That alone might prevent the rise of massive empires. Instead of enormous nations, there might be thousands of independent underwater communities connected by migration routes and ocean currents rather than roads. History would feel less like kingdoms conquering continents, and more like currents carrying cultures across the sea. Ironically, they might become better caretakers of the planet than we are. When you live inside your environment instead of standing on top of it, pollution isn't something that happens somewhere else. It surrounds you instantly. Poison the water, and you poison your own home. That direct connection might force underwater civilizations to think about nature in ways humans rarely have. So would life underwater be better? Not really, just different. You would trade forests for coral reefs, campfires for glowing plankton, roads for ocean currents, telescopes for endless blue horizons. You might never invent airplanes, but perhaps you would understand whales better than we understand each other. You might never walk on the moon, but you could explore trenches deeper than Mount Everest is tall. In the end, evolution isn't trying to create the smartest species. It isn't trying to create the strongest either. It simply rewards whatever survives long enough to pass on its genes. The reason you're reading this on dry land isn't because land was destined to win. It's because hundreds of millions of years ago, one tiny branch of your family tree made a different choice. And every city, every language, every invention, and every dream you've ever known grew from that single step out of the water. Maybe the strangest part isn't imagining humans who never left the sea. It's realizing how much of who you are today depends on one ancient decision your ancestors never even knew they were making.